Chapter 1. Definitions and Overview. This is just kind of a bunch of terminology that you're going to need this semester. Let's start with the value statement. The very first thing we do when we're creating business plan or a business model is come up with a value statement. And this is the things that we believe. Things like integrity or customer satisfaction. The next thing that we come up with is the mission statement, and that's basically who we are and what we do. Finally, we have the vision statement. This is who we want to be in the future. Together, the value statement, the mission statement, and the vision statements drive the strategy. These three things will determine which strategy you follow. A strategy is how the company is going to grow, compete, take advantage of its value chain, increase its performance. It's a roadmap for success. How are we going to get done what we want to get done? Tactics are the specific ideas about how to execute the strategy. The strategy is that we are going to differentiate or be different in some way. Tactics will talk about things like customer service or quality. Goals. Goals are broad statements about what the company wants to accomplish. We might set a goal of scoring perfect tens on our customer satisfaction surveys. Objectives. Objectives are quantifiable. The action plan. This is how the objectives will be accomplished. Now we'll go through all of these things throughout the semester, figuring out how they fit in and how we're going to use them. The action plan includes who, what, where, and when. The business model is how the company operates and how it's going to add value. This is how the items work together. The values basically drive the mission statement, which drives the vision statement. These three together drive the strategy and the business model, which work hand in hand. Then we determine the tactics, the goals, the objectives, and we develop an action plan. Other things that you need to know. Resources. These are basically things that the company has. They can be tangible or intangible. Capabilities. These are the things that the company can do. We can hire people. We can build furniture. Competencies are the things that the company does well. A core competency is a regular competency around which the company can build an organization, something that the company does very well. A competitive advantage is a core competency that the company does better than its rivals. It's the thing that we do. And a sustainable competitive advantage is basically a competitive advantage that'll last for a relatively long time. And we say relatively because a sustainable competitive advantage in one industry may last longer than in a different industry. So resources and capabilities lead to competencies, which lead to core competencies, which lead to a competitive advantage, and hopefully a sustainable competitive advantage. Performance is a measure of success. Performance doesn't necessarily have to be monetary. You could be successful if you have an extremely high quality rate, or if you're a nonprofit, maybe the number of people that you serve is a measure of success. So it doesn't necessarily mean profit, and that's why we call it performance instead of profit. Okay, another thing that we need to be aware of is the value chain. And while we've seen most of the other terminology before, we're going to go more in depth into the value chain. The value chain are the activities the organization performs to increase the worth of the product or the service. Michael Porter came up with the value chain. You're going to be hearing about Michael Porter all through the semester because Michael Porter just said everything. And if you don't remember who said it, just say Michael Porter said it. Direct value. These are the top 5 items uh, on the value chain that impact a product in a straightforward or obvious way. Indirect value are the 4 items at the bottom of the value chain. They impact the product in a roundabout way. For example, operations, a direct value, obviously changes input to output, raw goods to a finished product of some kind. Indirect value isn't so straightforward. Let's say that we have great hiring practices, part of human resources, and because of that, we have very high efficiency, we have very low turnover, we have people who really care about the customers. So that doesn't add customer or that doesn't add value in a direct way, but it does add value indirectly. Okay, so let's talk about each of these. The first is inbound logistics. This is all about the things that happen to get the raw materials into the firm. Things like shipping them in, warehousing them, if you do a quality inspection at the beginning, all of those things are considered inbound logistics. Operations is simply changing raw material into finished goods, changing wheat and meat and vegetables into dog food. Outbound logistics is everything that deals with the finished project control and its distribution. This is where we do outbound quality assurance checks. We ship things to our middleman or to our supplier or our buyers or whoever they go to next. Sales are activities that create demand. This is advertising, this is marketing, this is personal selling. These are all the things that we use to make things better. Okay, service is are the things that happen after the sale. We're talking about warranties or installation or those kinds of things. Research and development is researching the features and materials that are used not only in the product or things that the product can do, but actually the processes used in the businesses as well. For example, can we use robotics? Or is there an easier way to paint the widgets blue? Technology. Now, technology, you have to remember, is more than just computers. This is information technology, yes, but it's also other technology used in both the product and the process. Is there some better kind of material that we can use for our bags, something greener perhaps? Or is there some kind of new process that is more adaptable or better for what we're doing? Human resources. This deals with hiring, with personnel, with policies, and with procedures. And we already talked a little bit about how that adds value. And finally, we have administration. These are activities the company has to perform to keep its doors open. Accounting is a big one. Management is a big one. Line managers. All of those things that you have to do to just stay open. The supply chain. The supply chain indicates the suppliers and buyers for your product, and each step in the supply chain adds value because every company in the supply chain has its own value chain. Now, if there's a step in the supply chain that doesn't add value, it shouldn't be there anymore. So here we have a supply chain. We've taken cow. And what is the value chain on a cow? Well, actually, that's the farmer. And where do we get it? We don't go out and raise our own cows. The farmer raises the cows and takes them to the slaughterhouse and puts them in a format that's easy for us to use, for example. We have our own supply chain where we convert raw materials to finished goods and we quality check. We send those to the pet store. The pet store does things like not make you buy a whole case of them, so they have some outbound logistics value that they add. The buyer buys them, and even the buyer, in the case of dog food, has a value chain of opening the can and preparing it, so that's kind of the service part of it to feed to the end user. Everything in the supply chain must have a value chain. If somebody is not adding value, then there's no reason to have them. Strategic fit. This is one of the most important concepts in strategy. And basically what it says is strategy plus structure equal performance. If your strategy and your structure don't align, then you're not going to get the best performance that you can get. So what is structure? Are we talking about your building? No, structure is pretty much any of the items that you use to conduct business. For example, maybe our structure is our value chain, maybe it's our IT system, maybe it's our HR policies, anything that you can use to align your strategy to get the best performance. Later on in the semester, we're going to talk about culture, corporate culture. And corporate culture is a great one to talk about making sure that your strategy and your structure are in alignment to get the best performance. A good strategy fits the resources and capabilities of the firm, fits the industry and the company situation, and betters the company's performance. Sometimes it helps to keep or create a sustainable competitive advantage, but always helps keep or create a competitive advantage. That's it. That's the end of chapter 1.